morning, Mont Blanc. It is now Thursday, August 31st, and we are broadcasting, as always, from the heart of Chamonix. I'm joined by two fantastic co-hosts here this morning, Katie Asmuth on the end of the couch. Katie, good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, my great Australian mate, the one and only Mael Backhausen. Maj, how are you?
Good, Devo. Good. How you going?
I'm going great, buddy.
Good.
Thank you guys both for coming in. We're going to have a fun conversation here this morning. I've got my laptop open on the arm of my luxurious lounge chair here. We've got the OCC broadcast going on mute, so we might be semi-distracted. It's still very early in the race, so we'll have some live reactions of how that race is evolving, maybe talk about some of the characters in the event, and then we'll sort of preview CCC, and we'll see what else comes up along the way. Katie, this is your first time at UTMB. What are your first impressions?
Oh man. You know, it feels like college kind of when you're in your dorm and you like see everybody you know constantly. It's so fun. It feels like that because you're walking down the street and you're just like, oh hey. You know, it's like this big community, tons of fun. I didn't realize how pedestrian it all was. Like literally everybody's just like out and about, biking everywhere, walking everywhere, just hanging out. It's been a really good time. Super social. I think the most social I've been since college.
Yeah, it is a little bit exhausting. It's so fun.
It's a lot.
But it's
exhausting.
Fun.
It's really fun
just
though.
Sort of tumble into bed every night after doing all these recordings and then walking around town and bumping into 1,000 people. But
yeah,
it's the best week of the year. And of course, this is your first time. You're coming off a brilliant 4th place finish at Western States. Probably the best race of your career, I would guess. Facing a little adversity now. You were supposed to be running CCC, so maybe catch the people up on what's been happening since your awesome 4th place at Western.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. Like it's a downer. Try not to talk too much about it because it sucks. So I raced States, felt phenomenal, and I came out of that race the best I've ever felt after 100 miles, and I was like ready to rock for CCC. By Wednesday after the race, I was like, Coach, put me in. I'm ready. Like, let's start. I need to grab my poles. And yeah, I did everything. He's like, no, you need to take a full 7 days. We're doing this right. So we do it. It was about day 10 after Western States. Felt a little ache. And right on my navicular bone where I had surgery the year prior. And so I went in and to make sure that everything was fine. I'm like, maybe just some inflammation after 100 miles. And no, they were like, the fracture's still there. It never totally healed. And I was like, oh, give me a break. Super bummed out. And you know, it's a bummer because I went through surgery and I did all the things I was supposed to do. And I had 7.5 months of like pain-free running and thought I was way past it. So yeah, first injury of my life is just kind of not ending, which is a bummer, but it's all right. It's okay. You know, honestly, it's one of those times in life where you think about why we run and like the highs and the lows, and we feel all these all the time. I just was hoping to ride the high a little longer.
It's funny. You always have such a positive attitude. And now this is striking me that, you know, Mael has also been probably one of the most positive influences in my life over the course of the last decade too. So it's great that you two are here to share your optimism and positivity, even when you're wearing a boot. But I also think, honestly, it's probably good to come over here and not race the first time because you can absorb it. You can see the mountains, you can walk around town, understand the vibe. And then when you come back next time, you can knock it out of the park. You won't have too much of a learning curve.
Well, I think there's a shock factor. Like you talked to Hannah Allgood talks about it, right? Like how you come here and you're like, I'm prepared, I'm fit. And then you race it and you're like, oh God, these ascents just never end. Yeah. These descents never end, right? And I definitely am getting a taste of that. And we can talk about I went to Courmayeur yesterday to check out the beginning of the course for CCC for next year. And I was real humbled.
It's good.
We can talk about that later. But yeah, so it's definitely been a learning experience, and I'm really, really happy I'm here.
It's funny. I've been talking about this on the show this week, but I came for the first time 10 years ago in 2013, broke my ankle on the first day, and then I didn't race, obviously. So we're sort of in the same boat there. Kindred spirits as always, you and I. Mael, dude, it was your birthday 2 days ago. Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
And you're now 36 hours away from starting. Is it your second UTMB?
Yeah, it would be my 3rd start at UTMB. Yeah. So one was successful, the other one not so much. But can you say that you've run it 1.5 times?
Yes.
Yeah, you can. Because actually you're both parents now. And I got told last night, I was having the conversation with a friend who was like, if we celebrate effort as opposed to achievement, people always go harder and try harder for many more years. So you should do that with your kids. And we should do that in the sport a little bit more. So
I like it.
Yeah, I've done it 1.5 times. Don't really want to talk about the half, but the first one was really fun and I'm really keen to do it again.
Celebrate effort, not achievement.
Yeah,
Put
apparently.
it on a t-shirt.
It's a thing, yeah.
Before we pressed record here, I was telling everybody about how it must have been, so you raced in 17, that's the year you didn't make it, right?
That's true, yeah.
So was it 16 the year that the race was actually on your birthday?
That was 15, yeah.
15.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah. It's been a long time, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I was telling Ryan, Harmony, and Katie here that Mael ran UTMB on his birthday and then wrote a brilliant article about it called UT My Birthday, UTMB. Where was that published if people want to go Google it and find it?
Oh, man, that's in some blog on some archive somewhere.
Dude, we got to bring it back.
Freetrail
website.
Yeah.
We'll get it up on the Freetrail website for sure.
Send me a Google Doc. Send it to Corinne. Actually, she's our editor. So cool. Well, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about OCC as it plays out here today, and then we'll preview the action at CCC tomorrow. First, I do just have to get to our sponsors. Just say a quick thank you to both Hoka and Camelback for making Good Morning Mont Blanc and all of our athlete interviews possible. Of course, Hoka, born here in France, and has been around UTMB for the last decade plus since it's the brand's inception. It's been amazing to see how quickly Hoka has grown in the sport over the years. I'm sure it'll be the #1 used footwear product out on the course tomorrow. They are doing cool stuff too. Like there's an augmented reality experience you can go check out with Hoka athletes like Jim Walmsley at HokaAthleteTrainingCamp.com. So please do go check that out. And if you're here in Chamonix, make sure you stop by the Hoka base camp. It's stationed not far from where we sit over at the expo. Also Camelback. Camelback, obviously great supporter of the UTMB World Series. Also, Tim Perry from Camelback was in here yesterday. We had a good chat about the brand, the product, the UTMB partnership, some of the athletes and stuff too. So a big thank you to Camelback for their support. Tonight, we are actually going to be over at the Camelback event, which is at the Hotel Folie Douce here in Chamonix. Myself, Ryan, Harmony will all be there. Maybe Katie and Madge will make an appearance. And it is open to the public. So if you're here in Chamonix, make sure you swing by 6 to 8 p.m. tonight. There's going to be panels, open bar, previewing some product too. So anyway, big thanks to Hoka and Camelback for making it possible. Let's talk about OCC quickly. Rugged 50K. I think the first iteration of OCC was in 2014. I ran it in 2015. The thing is a monster. And it's so funny because compared to CCC and UTMB, it's sort of viewed as the easy race. But holy smokes. And we're watching these athletes just absolutely redline up and down these mountains right now.
Dude, that's it. It's the redlining. They don't take their pedal off the gas. And it's so impressive. I can't, who is that in front right now?
It's Caitlin Fielder.
Okay, Caitlin Fielder's up. Is she in front? No.
That actually, yeah, okay. So that's
hard to
Caitlin
know.
Fielder. She's a Kiwi athlete actually, but she lives in Girona, right? Do you know Caitlin?
Pandora.
I know, like I do know her, yeah. But yeah, like you said, she lived in Europe, so I don't really get to catch up with her too much unless we're over here. But yeah, she's an NZ athlete. She's been crushing it a lot on the Golden Trail series and things like that. Salomon athlete. So yeah, she's a great egg really, and she's a hell of a runner. She's had some awesome results this year. I think she's been on the podium of like Zagama, and she was in just out of the top 10 maybe of maybe 12th at like the World Trail and Mountain Running Champs this year in Austria. So yeah, she's one of the 95 favorites that's on that list. It's so deep.
We'll talk about some of the characters here first, but first let's kind of set the context of the course here and the weather. I think one of the stories of the weekend is that the weather is really shaping up to be very nice. You'll probably enjoy it. It'll probably be chilly at night, but otherwise it'll be good weather for everybody to be really pushing out there. It's not going to be a heat management type year here, and it doesn't look like it's going to be wet. So as long as the trails are in good condition after the precipitation that we've had here over the last few days, I think it could be a pretty quick year here at OCC, CCC, UTMB.
Yeah, Dylan, what I was going to say is this morning was the first time I actually saw Mont Blanc.
Right.
And it was actually really kind of a surreal experience because I'm walking into the apartment here and I'm like, we're going for Good Morning Mont Blanc.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Good Morning Mont Blanc for the first time.
Yeah.
She showed her face because it's been pretty moody out. I mean, I got in Sunday night late. And yeah, it's been cloudy, misty, kind of, you can't really see all that you want to see, it's behind those clouds. And today was the first day. So they're hopefully going to get some pretty views also, which is fun. Yep. But it's not like this like direct hot sun. Like there's like a little bit of cloud layer. I feel like it's a perfect day for racing.
Yeah. So I've got the 10-day weather forecast up here on my computer. So today expecting only a high of 61 degrees Fahrenheit here in the valley. So pretty much perfect, especially for these OCC runners who are going to be on the gas pedal all day, like Katie said. Looking ahead to tomorrow, CCC starts at 9 a.m. local time, I think, over in Courmayeur, and they're expecting a high of 68 degrees Fahrenheit here in Chamonix Valley. On Friday, it'll be a cool evening, likely in the high 40s for you guys, so cooler than that, going up over the high passes, probably low 40s to high 30s overnight for the UTMB runners on Friday night, and then Saturday only expecting a high of 70 degrees here in the valley. So it's going to be a brilliant, perfect day to just be sitting in the village watching people finish, which we're all very much looking forward to. So that's your weather forecast here. And I want to just also talk about the course with the three of you here for OCC first, and eventually we'll come around and talk about the CCC course. But since the athletes are out there right now, we may as well just talk through what they're confronting at the moment. Looking at the course profile here, you can see it's it's not exactly the CCC and UTMB course. In fact, there's quite significant differences, but what is similar is that, the final 50K of CCC and UTMB are 3 massive climbs. These are 3 massive climbs, also a total of 11,000 feet of climbing over the course of 32 miles. It's a little bit shorter this year. Madge, have you spent much time on these trails?
Yeah, I've definitely spent time on these trails. It's as you said, Dylan, it's a beast. And I think it's I remember actually you coming downtown after finishing, like we were finishing in 2015, and you ran into town, and you, like, the first things you said to me were like, "This is so technical." I was like, "Yeah, it sure is, man." It's like, it's just the perfect it's not just 50K, but it is also just like this perfect introduction to mountain running in this part of the world. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful course, and it's exactly what I'm sure all these people are out here to experience. And like you said, Katie, you start in Switzerland, and you come over the pass into France, down into the Chamonix Valley. And in that pass, when you come over, you get that full view of the Mont Blanc Massif. And today, like you said, it would be so beautiful out there. So and a perfect day for it.
I was going to say, probably is going to take their breath away. And I'm like, oh no, their breath's gone. Yeah, very cool. I think we forget, 11,000 feet of gain in 32 miles.
Yep. That's a hard 50K.
Whew. And a techie. There's some techie climbs, techie descents. It's tough. Yeah. Yeah. So.
MK Sullivan was in here a couple of days ago, and she alerted me to the fact that the course is actually a little bit different from last year. Okay. So I compared the GPX file that UTMB has made available here for the 2023 course and compared it to Danny Moreno's GPX file from last year. And it does look like it's about 3 miles shorter this year, but the same amount of climbing. I think they may have made an alteration at Col de Balme. So somehow it's shorter, but the same amount of climbing. So anyway, MK and I were speculating it'll probably be about 30 minutes faster, we think, for the men and women out on the course today. So we probably will see course records fall, even though sometimes those are less reliable here at UTMB because the courses have changed so many times over the course of the years. So anyway, that's OCC. Again, we've got updates that are going to be coming in throughout the day. Maybe before we start talking about CCC, we can just talk through the current leaders here, and maybe I'll just tick through some of them and you guys can add any color. So feel free to pause me if there's names that come up that you want to provide some perspective on. So just going through the top 10 women here, just through the first aid station. That's the only update we have so far. We had Allie McLaughlin in first, followed very closely by Tony McCann and Jen Lichter from the United States, Majell from China, Katie Scheid from the United States, though living here in France, Nuria Jill from Spain, Rachel Drake from the US in 7th, Kate Avery from Great Britain in 8th, MK Sullivan, an American in 9th, and Caitlin Fielder in 10th. Of course, we just mentioned Caitlin. It looked like she had moved into the lead. Again, this is still very, very early, so we will continue to keep you apprised as things evolve. Any of the women you want to mention there? Any color you want to add? We had Katie Scheid in here the other day. I think she's one of the major stories of the weekend here, coming off a fantastic second place, historic performance at Western States, and now stepping down in distance at OCC. Anything you want to say about Katie?
I mean,
Other
I want to say
Katie?
something about each and every one of those women. I'm so excited about this race. And it's going to be over by the time you're watching it, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. But I really think the American women's contingent at OCC and CCC is really exciting. The men at OCC, there's not too many American men that, there's like, I think, at least on the ITRA score or the World Series score, it's, I think the top American man was like 16th. And then in the American women, I think there was like 6 or 7 in the top 16, So we just have a stacked field. I mean, I'm going for an American sweep. But Katie Scheid, I really think this was a smart move for her because she is, her bread and butter is the mountains, and she doesn't need to train in the mountains to know the mountains, right? Like that is her baseline. And after UTMB last year, she said that she just stopped running with poles. It was like all eyes towards Western States, right? So she started, really focusing on speed. She did, the Eco Paris Challenge, right? She was really going for just like putting in, turnover. And she obviously put in a historic performance at Western States, getting second place. And then coming in here, I think it's just a brilliant move to go into OCC because she's got the legs she's got the strength for the mountains, but she needs that quickness that she normally doesn't have as much in the sense that she's so focused on mountain races, but she has like amazing 50K results. Mm-hmm. I mean, she has a history of doing these short races too. So anyways, I'm really excited what she's going to do today. I would not be surprised with a podium finish for Katie and possibly a win.
Yeah.
We'll see.
To your point, the American depth on the women's side of this race is spectacular. In fact, according to the UTMB index score, 5 of the top 6 overall rated women in OCC are Americans. And currently, of those top 10 that I just ticked through, again, very, very early. And by the time people listen to this, it'll be very different. But 5 of the top 10 through the first aid station, Americans. Again. What do you think, Madge?
Yeah,
as an adopted
America is doing really well in trail running these days. It's doing great. I believe there's also a South African in there, a New Zealander, Spanish. Chinese, so there's a mix of different continents as well, which is great to see. And I really wish they all have a great run. But look, it's far out. You read through that list before the race, and it's incredible how many names are on there that you recognize, and it's really awesome. And it's cool to see someone like Katie drop down in terms of distance and just do that. Look how many people are backing up Western States with UTMB, and then Katie's just gone and done OCC, and you're like, right on. Yeah. Like, how many people would have asked her, oh, are you doing UTMB? Like, thousands of people would have asked her that over the last few months.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Petter Engdahl in here yesterday, and I was just sort of thinking through the history here. And Xavier Thebnard, of course, has won OCC, CCC, TDS, and 3 UTMBs.
Yeah,
absolute ledge. But he's been on the podium of all 3 of the world finals: OCC, CCC, UTMB. Petter Engdahl reminded me that Mimi Kotka has done that. Mm-hmm. And now this year, Katie Scheid, Petter Engdahl himself, and Ruth Croft all have the opportunity to enter that pantheon of athletes who've been on the podium of all 3 of the world finals: OCC, CCC, UTMB. Of course, Ruth has won both OCC and CCC. So if she was able to add the UTMB trophy to her shelf, she would enter that Xavier Thebnard category.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys know, but actually Ruth has had to pull out of the race this year.
Is that official?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So unfortunately she won't be racing.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a huge bummer.
Yeah. Okay.
Because she's such a beast.
Yeah, she had suggested something to us earlier in the week, but I wasn't going to say anything publicly. So
yeah, but she's pulled the pin.
Yeah. Well,
but I hope she gets well soon.
She's such a champion.
She's a legend.
Yeah,
Did
she's
she
such
say
a
why,
legend.
Or we're not going to make that public.
Oh.
If she hasn't made it public, I don't know.
Yeah. She just unfortunately won't be able to race. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, if there's anybody though that pulls out of a race and comes back real strong, it's Ruth Croft, right?
Okay.
Totally.
I mean, I have so much respect for her, and listening to her body and her mind, she is at peace with that. She has to be.
I mean, Ruth
she trusts herself like no one else.
It should be said, she's a first ballot Hall of Famer, you know, and she's one of those athletes who doesn't seek the spotlight. Like, it's just a humble, hard work type person, but always does the right thing, always thinks long-term with her career. And when she shows up to race, she frickin' fights. And so it's too bad to not see her on the start line this weekend, but we wish Ruth nothing but the best, and we know she'll come back stronger for it. Moving on to the men's top 10 here. Again, still very, very early, but this is a fun contrast here. So let me just list the top 10 names and then tee something up for you guys. So in first place through the first aid station, we had Tao Lu from China. Then we had Jeshrin Small, a young American, in second. Steen Angermund in third. Robbie Simpson, fourth. Francesco Pupi, fifth. Yushin Guan, sixth. Arnaud Bonin, seventh. Joaquin Narvaez, Argentinian, in eighth. Anthony Felber in ninth. And Werner Marti in 10th. So the thing that I wanted to tee up for you guys here, we just saw 5 of the top 10 women were Americans. Now we have 9 different countries represented in the top 10 of the OCC for the men. The only country represented twice is China here in the top 10. But otherwise, we have US, Norway, Great Britain, Italy, France, Argentina, Switzerland.
I think that we need to talk about how this is really the global world championship for 50K.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really exciting.
Yeah.
I think, and we'll talk about it when we get to CCC, but there's a lot of double back from Worlds, and I think it's interesting because when you go to Worlds, you've done a qualification with your country, right? And then you get to run for Worlds. Here, anybody can show up, right? Well, there's a little,
Sure.
You got to get your stones. You got to figure out how to get in, but you're showing up, and it's really, to me, this is really become the echelon of the 50K. This OCC race is the championship of the 50K. And this week has become this diverse week of all athletes, of all distances, of all countries, not all, but a lot of countries, and we really have the representation that we've been waiting for. And for me, this has been a pivotal change where everybody's coming together to celebrate each distance equally compared to we're here only for UTMB. I feel like there's just as much excitement for OCC and CCC and UTMB, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. Madge, anything you want to say on the international representation front as our resident Australian and foreigner on the panel here? Because one of the storylines of the week that Corinne and I were talking about on our first show here was just this. And going back to last year, I looked at the top 10s of OCC, CCC, UTMB. And in each of the races for men and women, there was at least 6 countries represented in all of the top 10s. And in some of them, it was 9 and 8 countries represented, which, to Katie's point, really does drive home the point that UTMB really has become the default world championship where all the best athletes from all different countries assemble in one place.
Yeah, I think they've done an incredible job of that. And it's something that they have obviously been intentional about as well. I think, you look at the World Series structure and everything that's become, and it really is trying to have a global footprint. And I think it's a really positive thing. I think it's also going to push the sport to really make sure that there's offerings in all these places too, and hopefully lift the level of all events in all these countries to be up to a certain standard. And, who knows how far they're going to take it in terms of kind of officiating a lot of that stuff and compared to the World Trail and Mountain Running Champs. But it's like a really exciting thing for the sport. And I think it's great for us because we get to, associate with all these people. Like, I'm just here with a bunch of cool Americans. I feel like I'm in a movie show from, I feel like I'm trying to think of a good movie right now, but
this is our movie.
This is our movie. And so it's like, it's a great thing for us because, diversity is just is a thing that exists in the world, and we need more diversity in trail running for sure. And I think hopefully this just continues to solidify that we're a global community and we should, be kind and accepting of everyone. And this is a place where everyone should feel like they can come and enjoy the outdoors and be with good people from around the world. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to, I think, entrench ourselves in our community here. I don't know if you guys followed the track and field world championships at all. It took place, I think, in Budapest or whatever, a week or two ago. It's just like, how much cooler is this? This is so much cooler, I have to say. Hashtag better than Boston is what we say here at Freetrail. So
I mean, I will say
that compares.
There's not a lot of East Africans. We don't have, I'm missing Sumaya Buddha. There's people that have, we're not seeing a lot from, Southeast Asia. We're not seeing a lot from South America. There's big gaps also. So we have a lot of work to be done. I did want to talk about also that this week is something unique in our sport in the sense that it also is a trade show. And also you have all these brands, these sponsors that are hosting these athletes' houses, and the whole Adidas team's together, the whole Hoka team's together, the whole Craft team's together. Like, it's really exciting to have that kind of vibe. We don't get that anywhere else. I mean, we kind of want to have that with Broken Arrow in Western States, I feel like, to bring in the shorter distance and then the longer distance, but they're different RDs. It's different weekends. We don't quite have that week-long event festival that we want or that we talk about. Here we have it. And that's really exciting. People from all over the world, all different languages. I really like that it's also like the trade show too, I like that
this
aspect
is something
of it.
we talked about yesterday too on the show with Sage and Sally and Billy. Is like, in the early days when the Americans were coming over here, specifically, they'd arrive on Monday or Tuesday, and then they'd do big runs in the mountains, and then inevitably like kind of fall apart during UTMB. And now it's become ubiquitous for runners to be here for a whole month. And like you said, the brands are giving their athletes the resources to be able to come over here to train, to give themselves the opportunity to perform their best on the world's biggest stage. So everybody's invested at this point. I mean, you've been here in the Valley now since Western States, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in and out. Yeah. But I first came over, just at the end of July there. Yeah.
And you did a lap around the mountain. You did with Dan Jones and Ruth Croft and Martin
Peter Engdahl,
and Petter. So any observations about just the energy in the Valley for the summer and like these professional athletes who are making this investment?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And then you also see like, a whole crew of people being in teens and wanting to train a little bit higher at altitude as well. And yeah, it's unreal, some of the support that people are getting. And it's a great thing. And specifically here in town, it's been manic. Like, it's been so busy. Normally it's like pretty chill, and then UTMB week's here and you're like, no, it's UTMB week. Now it feels like the whole month of, July and August is like just full on. And it's really sweet. Like it's really changed since, you said the first time you came here was 2013? 2013.
10-year anniversary.
Right. Like, it's changed since then, like dramatically. And it's really become, I think a lot of people back then were saying, oh, this week and this summer season is getting comparable to the winter season here in Chamonix. Yeah. And now it's like definitely either overtaken it significantly or it's really like equal to it. And that's a huge thing for these mountain resorts and valleys like this. Yeah, it's huge.
We were talking about that too on our history show that we did on Tuesday with Doug Mayer, who wrote the book on the history of the UTMB and the economic impact that it has on the local communities here. And obviously it can expand to a point where it's maybe too big, where it's a little bit too much of a strain on the community and on the resources. And I think arguably it may have grown to that point now. I know UTMB, the race organization, has been really cognizant of trying to ensure that they don't over expand and don't do anything that would compromise what the local community and the local resources can accommodate here. But I mean, it's so much different than it was in 2013, right? I was here as one of the handful of Americans. There was a couple Spaniards in the race, but otherwise it was mostly French athletes. And now, as we've been talking about, it's so internationally diverse that it's just become, like we continue to say, the default world championship. Let's start talking about CCC a little bit here. But before we do, I want to remind our listeners and viewers to please subscribe to the Freetrail YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. We would certainly really appreciate it. And if you're listening to this in podcast format, you can also subscribe there. We would definitely appreciate you to follow along with all of our hard work and all the content that we put out. We put a lot of effort into it, and the more people who can hang out with us, the happier we'll be. So thank you for doing that. Moving on.
Should we give a plug for Freetrail Pro?
Oh, yeah, you should.
Because
also
we had a good time last night.
tell the people about Freetrail Pro a little bit, Katie.
Okay, you should join Freetrail Pro. It's a good time. Last night we had a bunch of people here. There were people that had never been to the valley. Actually,
We had a full-on rager right here last night.
Rager, right here. And it was really fun because we at one point we were like, all right, everybody raise your hand who's racing. And one person raised his hand who had already raced TDS. And it was, MCC. Anyway, it was pretty epic because we're all just here as fans. And it was, there's all of us are doing something here. We're having a lot of fun in the mountains. We're crewing. But it was really cool community. Everybody's just like super fans. And so if you're into trail running, if you appreciate this sort of content, you got to become a Freetrail Pro member. It's really fun. And you join a bigger global community. And the Slack has been a way to stay engaged like never before. Like me, I'm injured right now, as mentioned. And it's just like, it's so fun to stay like you're a part of the sport. You're on the cutting edge of everything that's going on. You feel like you can make community and have meetups in your local community. And it's just, all the extra articles and podcasts and it's an active
Rest Day
place.
pod.
Rest Day, Best Day.
No, it's funny too on the subject of international representation too, just off the top of my head here at the Freetrail meetup that we had last night. Matt, you should have showed up. I know you got a big race on tap.
That is Freetrail Pro.
Yeah.
You got to avoid the parties if you're racing because they go hard.
Yeah,
they go hard.
That's true. So off the top of my head, we had Brits, Aussies, Frenchmen. We had a couple people from Switzerland. We obviously had Americans. We had Canadians. So, the Freetrail Pro community is also quite international, which makes us all super proud and happy. Anyway, thanks for the plug for that, Katie. Go check out Freetrail Pro at freetrail.com. Moving on to CCC. Let's talk about some of the action that's going to be taking place tomorrow morning. I think it starts at 9 a.m. local time. Maybe Harmony can fact check me on that. And of course, there will be a live stream broadcast. And we should say that Corinne Malcolm and Martin Gaffuri are on the call here this morning for OCC. And I think they'll be on the call again tomorrow morning for CCC 2. And CCC, of course, the world final for the 100K distance. And it has really become one of the most competitive races in the world. Again, another thing that makes UTMB so fun, that in the course of 48 hours, you have 3 of the most competitive races across 3 distinct distances, all in the same location, which makes our job so incredibly fun. One thing I'd love to have you talk about, though, Katie, is that this is the first time that CCC will have golden tickets attached to it. As our resident Western States superstar, any comments on the golden ticket chase at CCC?
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the change. I think that CCC to Western States is much more comparable than UTMB. But still, man, CCC is a lot of climbs. Whew. You still have to be a mountain athlete, and we'll get to this. But I think the strength and the speed it takes to do well at CCC really translates well to Western States. And I think that you have to have a lot of grit and that fatigue resistance that runners always talk about. This is the epitome of that. And I think if you do well at CCC, you can do well at Western States. And I'm really excited that it's a golden ticket race.
So that fatigue resistance thing came up twice yesterday. I don't think
funny.
I'd ever heard of this concept or phenomenon, but your coach, David Roche, brought it up because we did a fun
That's probably why it's in my head because I hear it all the time from them.
But then Petter Engdahl mentioned it too. And
funny.
I was like, what is this fatigue resistance thing? It's like the new hot thing in sports science or what?
I think it's hard because it's one of those like you can't really put science on it, right? It's almost this like qualitative idea that someone can be like succeed well in these long distances, right? And be able to pace themselves, but be able to like still be just as strong at the end. Maybe not just as strong, but pretty strong at the end. And I mean, all of us, that's our goal. And how do we increase our fatigue resistance, right? But I mean, I think there's some of us that like that is our goal.
Yeah.
And anyway, so yeah, I think that's what we're talking about.
Thanks for adding some context there. And I'll expand on it a little bit here because it's definitely going to be relevant to our preview of the men's race because David brought it up in relationship to Drew Holman. So maybe we'll start there. But before we do, I just want to give the audience a little bit of an idea of what the runners will confront during CCC tomorrow. So I've got the GPX file again uploaded into the Strava route builder. And according to this data, it looks like CCC tomorrow will measure at about 61 miles, 61 and a quarter with a total elevation gain and loss of 20,000 feet in 100 kilometers. So it is a monster of 100K, though it is pretty non-technical. Maybe Madge, you can comment on the underfoot conditions on the TMB route, because obviously we are in a majorly mountainous environment, but if you compare it to something like Hard Rock, for example, it's less technical.
Yeah, those trails that the CCC runs on, the majority of it are on the actual TMB hiking route, and so they are really well worn, and they've been walked on by tens of thousands of hikers this whole season so far. Tens of thousands might be a bit much, maybe thousands. But so like the thing is with that is like, yeah, there are small sections when you get into the forest and you get into the woods, getting closer to town, that, yeah, it does get a bit steeper. The pitch is a bit steeper, gets a little bit more technical with roots and rocks. But for the vast majority of it, it is pretty smooth, kind of nice trails. Yeah, you'd say they're almost a little American in some places. So it's like, but you do get those instances where there are technical sections, and if a runner can get over those seamlessly and not have to muck around too much, then that's obviously going to be a huge positive thing for their race. But yeah, it's like you said, like if you look at the stats on it, obviously, it's fast in some regards, and so that suggests that when you can move on the trail, you can really move, and so it's not going to be that technical. So
and it's almost like softer ground too. Western States is sort of like dusty California, non-technical single track. This is more like moister but softer earth around UTMB, and just from my own memories of racing on the course, the technical sections are especially concentrated in the descents in the last third of the race, which does make it difficult, dropping down into Trient, I recall, is a pretty technical stretch, dropping into Valersine also. So it's not totally smooth. Obviously there's 30,000 feet of climbing and descending in UTMB, 20,000 in CCC. But so, the terrain is very steep, mountainous terrain, but pretty non-technical underfoot. So just
and you're in the light and in the daylight compared to UTMB, right?
Yep.
For most of the day, you're running at night.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to this fatigue resistance thing and how it might apply to tomorrow's race. Again, David brought it up in relationship to Drew Holman, who's another swap athlete like Katie Asmuth. So maybe, Katie, we can use that as an opportunity to tee you up for some of the men's favorites that you're looking at in CCC tomorrow.
I think there's something like, I think it's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 9th. Double check me on that. But there is I think 6 men from last year's top 10 at CCC coming back this year, which is very different than the women's CCC. And I think that's really exciting because I think it's going to be a stacked, like these people know this course and the men and are very experienced and veterans on it. And I think that really is going to just add another level of competition and confidence that these men are going to go out hot is my prediction. It's going to be perfect weather, like we talked about. The conditions it's been like moist and kind of like rain. We've had rain. I think the trails are going to be now dry, but have had that moisture. It's going to lock that in. I think the trails are going to be even, smoother maybe than has been in the past, even in that way. I think it's going to be fast conditions. Again, back to what we talked about with Worlds and CCC, I think you have to be able to be fast and to have the mountain legs. So I think if you did well at Worlds and you have a fast like turnover background, then I think this is the race for you. We got to talk about Drew Holman because he's our man and we love Drew. I'm going for a podium, Drew. You got this. I'm so excited for him. But we look at his Lake Sonoma and what he did there. Absolutely crushed. And then to be able to get 6th at Worlds, 6th? 5th. 5th. I was like, wait, 5th at Worlds. Yeah, Zach got 6th. 5th at Worlds. And I just think that combination is really going to set you up perfectly for CCC.
Yeah. So maybe before we talk about more of the men's characters, you did bring up that we expect it to be fast conditions. And we also talked about Petter a couple of times here. So maybe just reminding our audience about the 2 course records that we saw last year. And maybe we could speculate as to whether or not they may be in play. Of course, CCC is one of the most competitive races in the world. You need that density of competition in order to challenge these types of course records. Petter Engdahl shocked the world last year, raced out of his mind, super aggressive off the start. We were all expecting him to fade. And he just continued to build momentum all the way back to Chamonix, where he finished in 9 hours and 53 minutes. Sick fast. It wasn't that long ago that CCC was like an 11.5 hour race. It's now under a 10-hour race. It's insane. That's level of advancement in the sport in just 5 or 6 years is sick. Of course, Blandine Lahirondelle also broke a long-standing course record that was held by Mael. She finished in 11 hours and 40 minutes. Blandine's time would have won many of the men's races, 5 or 6 years ago. Again, crazy. Blandine is stepping up to UTMB. So is Petter Engdahl. They vacate that defending champion throne. There will be new CCC champions here today. Maybe if there's anything you want to add to what I just said, especially having a personal relationship with Petter, before we go into some of the other favorites.
Yeah, well, quickly, I think Petter's my tip for UTMB anyway. But and I think, like you said, Dylan, the temperatures out there this weekend are just going to be another added factor to what you were saying, Katie. Like, if the conditions are good on the ground and then that weather stays as cool as it predicts, then that's going to just be like a game changer again. Yeah. And with John Alban, he's racing, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Last year's second place runner who would have broken the course record.
Yeah. Again, right? So he's like, wow, it's going to be awesome to see what he can pull out of the bag. And especially if he's got some people hot on his heels pushing him, who knows what will go down. But I think the biggest factor is going to be that weather, like cool conditions, is going to allow everyone to just get on with the job and not have to worry about, what you have to at things like Western States where you're, putting ice in every cavity you can. And it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah. So last year, 2nd, 3rd, 4th place was Jonathan Albin, Andreas Reiterer, and Shenjin Shen. Mm-hmm. All 3 of them are back. So maybe we could talk about each of them individually. John Albin, consummate professional, super strong, consistent runner, also an obstacle course racing world champion, British guy who lives in Norway. Andreas Reiterer, also one of the most consistent performers, especially at about this 100K type distance. He was 2nd at the world championship, I think, in Thailand, right?
Yeah, after leading for at Austria.
In Austria.
And I think he did do really well in Thailand. I think he got 3rd. But he was leading like the whole race in Austria until I think almost the final climb, and then he got overtaken. So he's, like you were saying, Katie, he will be so ready for this kind of condition and this race. He's obviously a mountain guru. And then, and I think you look at those 3 guys.
And then Shen, Chinese athlete who just finished 4th place at UTMB running. I'm sorry, excuse me,
States.
Western States. Your
Western,
fellow
yeah.
And he was 4th
place.
last year at CCC.
Yep.
And he's been in Europe training since States.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
So he is very dedicated to this race. And I love that he has the experience on the course, coming off that speed of States and now being able to get back to the mountains. I think he's going to do really well. He's definitely got the confidence going into this race too. Yeah.
So just to tick through some other characters here, and feel free to pause me and add color for each or any of these characters, but some of the people who are sort of on my fantasy list: Thibaut Baronian, great athlete, younger guy who has really excelled in the Golden Trail World Series. Our guy, Dakota Jones. We got a bunch of great Americans. Eric LaPuma is an athlete who I think is really going to surprise some people and make his mark.
I don't think he's surprising anyone.
Right.
I mean, this guy is so consistent. If you're not betting on Eric LaPuma, I mean, you've got your fantasy in the wrong order. Just saying.
Yeah, he's showed up at the last few World Championships.
Yeah.
Like he's right on it. Hey?
And now
Back-to-back
he's got
7th
Adidas
places.
behind him,
Yep.
right?
And now he's
which
got
is
a
pretty
real
cool.
pro contract and the real support that he deserves behind him.
Yeah.
One thing I think is remarkable about Eric is that he lives in Vermont. He lives on the East Coast of the US. Really difficult to train for that World Championship course in Austria from the Green Mountains of Vermont. You know, to be able to perform at that level on that stage against mountain people while you live on the East Coast is really impressive. So I don't know exactly how his training has progressed since then, but I'm assuming he's showing up here really fit and ready.
And I'm curious if Drew and Eric are going to run together.
Yep.
Like I'm curious because that's what they did at Worlds, right? Like they worked together, and I'm hoping they do. I think that they could really feed off each other.
You got Seth Ruling, another American in the field, John Ray, obviously Drew Holman. I think Drew is really, he's poised to have a fantastic one, and we're all certainly rooting for him. He's a good friend of all of ours. Some people or some names that maybe our American listeners may be lesser familiar with. Andreu Simon, a Spanish athlete. He's a really great performer. He ran Trans Gran Canaria, won that this year, earlier in the season. So he's going to be a factor. In the
He was
men's race.
6th last year.
Sixth last year, yeah. And then Peter Frano, I think he's Slovakian. He was 3rd or 4th at the World Champs.
3rd at World Champs.
3rd at the World Champs, and a young kid. He's a ski mountaineering national champion for his home country. So he's going to be an interesting, younger addition to the field, coming off a podium finish at the World Champs, but still making a name for himself as a trail runner.
And he was 5th last year. So I'm just at CCC. So to reiterate the amount of experience that we have, 6 of the top 10 from the men's CCC last year are going to be here. I mean, all of these guys are going out to win it, and I think it's really exciting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the men's race tomorrow?
I mean, just the fact, and it's the same with the men and the female, and the same with the OCC and every race here, is like you can read down that list to number 30, and I think there will be people in every other country that will go, oh, that's my guy, like that's my lady, like that. There are so many people here that nationally are at the highest level in their country, and they're here, and they might be 30th on the list because of the way the UTMB index works, but they're just incredible athletes, right? Like you guys with, the United States has a bunch of those names right in the top 10 list, but yeah, like I look down the list as an Australian, and I see some of the guys that I know, and I'm like, whoa, like he's unbelievable. Like just take Blake Hose, for instance, an incredible athlete, incredible person. And I don't know exactly where he is on that list, but I think he's like maybe, top 20 or top 30. And I'm like, he is incredible. Like he's been living out here in the Valley for the past month, and it excites me what someone like him can do.
I remember when he was like 21 and he finished on the podium at Transvolcania.
Yeah.
Aussie bloke.
And now he's back, like good health, crushing it, and like he's down that list, like like further than he's like outside of the top 15 for sure, and it's just like, but he's a beast, and it excites me because you just don't know who's going to have that race of their life, or just have a really, really good day and get in that top 10. And then whammo, you've got another person to add to this list of incredible athletes that we can all relate to and help support through the sport. So it's, I'm just stoked to see like the person that isn't highlighted in the top 10 come through and have an awesome race. And it'll be great.
So before we move to the women's race in CCC, I just want to give a quick update here from OCC and have you guys add any color that you'd like to, but the favorites are now up over the top of the first climb in the men's race. The women are expected there imminently, so we'll check in on them here in just a second. But to bring it to the men first, we've got a duo of Chinese athletes leading OCC right now. We've got Yushen Guan in first place, followed by Tao Lu in second place. Behind him, Stian Angermund, who's a OCC champion back in 2020, I believe. Robbie Simpson in fourth, Jeshrin Small in fifth, Anthony Felber in sixth, Francesco Pupi in seventh, Nadir Magit in eighth, Bart in ninth, and Werner Marti in 10th as it stands now through Lagiet 19K into the race. Again, when people listen to this, the race will be over. But one name, maybe Katie, you could comment on, Jeshrin Small, young American guy out there putting his nose in the fight.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of back to what you were saying, right? It's like when you look at that top 10, people that you're not expecting to be in, and then you see these, we call them random ballers, right? The people that are showing up that you're like, wow. I mean, they're not random ballers. They've been working their tails off to get to this level, but that takes guts, right? And I love it. And no matter what happens, like this is going to be a memory that this guy has forever, and is going to take him and bring him confidence and experience to the next races, you know? So I love that he's putting his nose in it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. I met him at the Canyons by UTMB race in April. Freetrail was there doing some commentary. And we were lucky to have him sit down for a little interview after his second place finish in the 50K, and where he gave Hayden Hawks a fight for his life for that 50K win. And Jeshrin, I think, lives in the very small town of Gunnison, Colorado. He was sort of developed in the Western State College trail and ultra running program there, which is started and founded by Josh Eberly, who's another longtime trail runner from Colorado. Anyway, just a cool story of somebody who developed in college, still super young, clearly here on the world stage, looking to make a name for himself after a great open to a season at the Canyons 50K, where he was second behind Hayden. So fun stuff. The women are not through Lagiet yet. The men are getting close to Trient, so we'll check back in on that here in a second. Katie, maybe tell us a little bit about what you're expecting in the women's race in CCC tomorrow.
Sure. Can we do one more man?
Yes.
David Laney, what's going on?
Oh, Dave Laney. He was in here for a little convo yesterday.
Are we going to talk about him or no? I mean, the fact that he's going to CCC over UTMB after 4 or 5 UTMBs? How many has he done?
4 UTMBs.
4 UTMBs.
Arguably one of the top performing Americans ever here at UTMB, with a 3rd place and a 4th place. Only Tim Tollefson has been on the podium twice. Dave Laney's also got a 14th at UTMB. Last year he had a tough finish. Stepping down to CCC for the first time after 4 UTMBs. It'll be fun to see. Which
again shows how exciting CCC is, right? That you have those top caliber athletes that have been running UTMB, all the emphasis on UTMB, and it's like, actually, I want to give it a go at CCC. I love it. Anyway, so just wanted to give him a shout out.
Yeah, he's been here for like a month too. So clearly taking it seriously and seems to be in great fitness and seems confident. So shout out to our boy, Dave Laney. Mm-hmm. The women.
Oh my gosh.
Where to start?
Seriously.
Okay. So there's some wild cards.
Yep.
And just like in any race, of course. And that's why we do this, is because there's so many unknowns and it's so fun. We have to say Azara Garcia. I mean, so she's the top of the World Series score, Spanish woman who she just shoots her shot. And I'm really excited to see what happens this year, because in the last 10 races, she's won 7 and DNF 3. Okay. So she either wins or DNFs.
Yeah.
So she goes hard. She's going to go for it. We know she's going to start out fast. And I'm curious. I'm thinking about that lead pack and who's going to be in that lead pack when we first start. And I think it's going to be Azara, Ida Nilsson, and hopefully our girl Helen Mino Faulkner.
Yeah.
That's who I'm rooting for, and I'm curious to see who holds on. I think that Azara for sure is a wild card, and we'll
Helen's
see.
the wild card. Helen's the real
Dude,
wild
no,
card.
she's not. She's so consistent.
But
She's gonna dominate.
She's 27 years old. She
Yeah.
was 13th at CCC last year. She's won Broken Arrow and Speed Goat this year.
Yeah.
She's the type
And that Valhalla, Argentinian
right.
race.
So for people like you and I, she's not a wild card.
Right.
But for the international trail fandom, many people who will be listening and watching to this, Helen, Red Cloud, Mino Faulkner, look her up on Instagram, Shred Monster. In fact, I picked her to win in my fantasy.
I think that's what's going to happen too. Yeah. She's my winner. So Azara is going to go out hot and then she's going to DNF. Ida's going to go out hot and then she's going to fade. And then Helen's going to grab it.
Oh, that's the great prediction, I think.
That's what I think is going to happen.
We also were just talking before we went live here this morning that Helen just signed a major pro contract with Hoka, our great supporters of Good Morning Mont Blanc. And I think this is really important for her. 27 years old, entering the prime of her career, arguably, entering a new partnership with a brand who can help take her game to the next level. Any
That's
comments
massive.
on that? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was under the impression that she was already sponsored when I saw her out at Broken Arrow. And then I read on the
was
list.
North Face,
But it was more of an ambassador thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. And I did see on the list that you sent over the other night, that, yeah, she had unsponsored. I was like, oh, right. But I mean, that's awesome. Like, yeah, give it to the young up and comers. I mean, young, she's 27. She's obviously got a head on her shoulders. So yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that maybe Katie, you could talk about here too, is like, it's such a big opportunity for a lot of these athletes like Jeshrin, like Helen Mino Faulkner, getting a podium performance at this stage, like one of the world final races, can change your life as an athlete. And so that's why, you will see some of these newer names who a lot of people will be unfamiliar with going for it, taking big swings, because you're going to have to do that if you want your life to be changed.
I mean, honestly, that's what I was thinking. It's like, why sign the Hoka contract before CCC? I think Hoka got a deal. That's what I think. I'm like, oh, come on. That was like her only move. You got to wait till after CCC. And, I think that Helen really won't let that get to her head. I don't think that the pressure of having a new sponsor such as Hoka, at least that's the vibe I get from her. I met her in 2020. She would know. When she ran Big Chief, she ran it against my friend, Alyssa St. Laurent, who won the race, but Helen was like on her tails, I think like a minute behind her. They both were 1-2 overall in that race, this like small little 50K. My friend's like, who is this girl? She made me really like race for my life. And so we went up to her afterwards and she's like the nicest, sweetest person. And I'm like, man, this girl's legit. Fast forward to her pacing Esther Schillag at Western States. The two of us are running third and fourth. We're running for a podium at Western States. It's the back 20 miles, to get to the finish line. And Helen's making up lies, saying that Ida Nilsson, Emily Hawgood are right behind us. She's like getting text messages on her phone. Guys, they're 2 minutes behind you. We got to pick it up. And so it's Helen, Esther's pacer, myself, and we're just like, we're scared for our lives. We think that the chase group is fresh behind us. Helen's totally making up lies. They were like 8 minutes back, 10 minutes back, 12 minutes back. She's telling us they're right. I see their headlamps, right? So Brilliant. This girl has got, she's got the fire. She's got the spunk. She definitely has grit, and she just loves the game. I think she has fun with it. And I think she just really enjoys it. I think she's all in. I think she's a lifer.
I get the same impression too. Yeah. And as a 27-year-old, she sat on the couch and I was like, are you willing to just like say what your goals are? And she's like, honestly, I think I have like really unrealistic goals. Like I really want to try and win. I was like, yes, like that's what it takes,
Irrational confidence. Yeah. But I think it's rational. I think she's good. Yeah.
So we've got a few women through La Giette, but let's wait until we get a few more in OCC. Tell us before we give the updates from OCC, talk a little bit more about some of the female favorites in CCC tomorrow.
Geez, you look at me. Sorry,
list in front of you.
I don't have the list in front of me. Here. But again, like you look at that list, and it is it's just, it's incredible. They really have. I'm the people behind the UTMB World Series would be sitting there right now going, we're getting there. Like we have just pulled such an incredible field of athletes in all of our races. Like this is really happening. And I think to the point at which they want, because like you look at this list and you're just like, whoa, like you look at all these people and you're like even Emily Horgood, like straight away, South African. And you're just like, and she's got so much potential here. Look at what she's done at Western States over the last few years.
And UTMB.
And you're just like,
tens at UTMB.
You know, and you're just like, again, like to speak to what you were saying, Katie, experience out here, like knows what's going on. I'm not sure how long she would have been out here for, probably a while, like because they've had the Adidas house out here for a good bit. So she might have been out here training consistently. And it's just like, you just go down this list and it's like, it is crazy. Yeah. You're just like, it's just, and then you look at some of the French runners, French runners in this field that have also represented their country, which is just like incredible. And the names that pop up from the World Championships, it's just incredible. One person, Rosanna from Germany, Rosanna Bacher, like she's a beast. Like
she's on my fantasy team.
She's on my
not
third.
To brag.
You know, and like what she's done at the last couple of World Championships, I think she's got top 10 at both of them. I think 5th in Austria and I think 8th at
5th also at
5th
Thailand.
at both. Yeah.
And she got 5th. That's 5th's her number. I think she's going to improve on it this year.
It's interesting because, you know, like if you think about the German professional ranks, the French and the Spaniards are, if you look at the European professional ranks, if you look at the European professional ranks, the French and the Spaniards are what come to mind first. And now Germany's really ascending. We've got Hannes Namberger, one of the men's favorites in UTMB, who I think all of us are really excited to see race as well. And Rosanna and CCC. Yeah. It's really cool, again, to see this international improvement. Katie, do you know Alison Baca?
I love Alison Baca. She's a mom. She's also a swap athlete, and she absolutely dominated at Worlds this year. Crusher performance. But again, back to that speed. It's like Drew. I think Alison and Drew have similar strengths in the sense that, I mean, Drew definitely has, more big races under his belt, but Alison has got second at Lake Sonoma to Erin Clark this year, and then got, it was 6th at Worlds. And I mean, it shows that speed and strength. Getting 6th place at Worlds, talk about a dark horse. Alison Baca, no one was expecting that, but I think David Roach was. I was so excited to see, and just generally that mom strength. Holler to the other moms, parents out there, really. But to see her absolutely dominate and take that confidence to the next level, I think going out strong was something I wasn't expecting out of Alison Baca. Going out hot and then keeping it, back to the fatigue resistance. She's got it. I think this is going to be a strong race for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, another one of those athletes who this is a great opportunity for her. A mom coming off a 6th place performance at Worlds. Nobody would have predicted she would have been the top American at Worlds, let alone, be in the top 10 overall. Alison Baca arrives at the world stage there, and now she has a great chance to back it up here at 100K at CCC. Maybe mentioning just some of the other sort of fan favorites, and you guys can chime in with whatever you want to add here. Emily Forsberg back. Talk about mom category, mother of 2. Is going to be racing for, under the normal flag here at CCC. Emily Forsberg, obviously one of the great champions of my generations for sure. Erin Clark, I'm excited to see return to competition after winning at Lake Sonoma earlier in the year, having to pull out of Worlds due to injury.
And she was 7th here last year at CCC. Yep. Yeah. So I think she's a bit of a wild card in the sense we don't know what Erin Clark is showing up. I really hope it's a strong one and that Achilles isn't bothering her. But, as we know, she had to drop out of Worlds, which actually gave Emily Schmitz an opportunity to run for us and got 7th place at Worlds. So, I think Erin, we don't know. She just got 32nd at Sierre-Zinal, and which is awesome that she was putting herself out there in a really short, unfamiliar course and just throwing herself into the mountains for some experience. But I don't know where she's at. I think I did look at her Strava, and she's been putting in some like big weeks. One in particular was like a really huge week with like 30K of climbing, 19-hour week. So, I mean, obviously she's got the fitness, and hopefully her injuries at bay and she's doing all right.
Yeah. So just another few names, especially for the American contingent, who I know we're all going to be rooting for. Addie Bracey here at CCC. Hannah Allgood, one of our favorites, co-host of Trail Running Radio with our guy Ryan Thrower, who's behind the camera right now. Hannah Allgood had a disappointing one here at CCC by her standards, but she is back
with the 14th place.
14th, solid. She's
at
just
her
behind
debut
Helen.
CCC,
just behind Helen.
Yeah,
last year. Experience on the course now. Both her and Helen, I think, are in that category of like they're ready to break into the international superstardom. So Hannah Allgood, keep your eye out for her. Got Tara Fraga in the field here this weekend. Elsie Davis, I'm excited to race, a British athlete. Yuri Yoshizumi from Japan, she's always really solid. Anyway, we could go
Priscilla
on.
Forgy.
Priscilla, really interesting character. I think maybe just to go back to the course and course profile and what makes CCC unique and difficult. It starts with just an absolute monster of almost a vertical mile climb, just a beast of a climb that, remembering back to last year, Petter Engdahl just absolutely shredded. But then after that big climb, you have a lot of runnable terrain between, the Refugio Breton, the first aid station, all the way to Arnuva. That's probably a 10-mile stretch. Then you have the big climb up the Grand Col Ferret. But then you get another half marathon of like ripping fast, gentle downhill. That's the first 50K. The back half is a freaking monster. So one of the things that I think makes UTMB and CCC difficult is that it can be a speed trap. The early part is a lot harder than the later part. So that's why in UTMB especially, we see a ton of explosions around that Champex-Lac area. Any comments on the course, how it sets up?
Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone's been out to Courmayeur who's watching, but if you do go place yourself in Courmayeur, you just look up and you're like, how would you get out of this town if it flooded? And there's nothing but walls and mountains around you. It's so dramatic. And it's like Chamonix is dramatic, but when you go to Courmayeur, you're just like, whoa, what is going on here? And like you said, Dylan, like that first climb is just, you just go up one of those walls, mountains out of town. And then, and the other tough thing about that is that you start in town and quite quickly on you get funneled into a single track, and there's this like little bit of a race within the race to make sure you get yourself a pretty good position to get yourself on that first section of single track in a place where you're not like bottlenecked and single file lined up there. So I think that's one thing that people will be aware of and conscious of, and then how do you manage that effort in that first climb so that you don't overcook it, and then you like have the ability to use use what you've got and your leg speed over that section, like you said, from Baton all the way along that traverse down to Arnuva, and then like you said, Dylan, you've got those walls, those 3 walls at the end there. So you like the climb up from Champé, and then the climb up from Triant, and then the climb, which has been changed a little bit from Valacine.
That's still very tough.
Yeah, it's still going to be
I honestly think it may be slower than the traditional Tête Avant climb.
I mean, it's because you do have a small one, and then you go down a little bit, and then you've got another one. So it's like
there on that little short downhill.
So it's changed, but it's just like you said, it could be even tougher for some people. So
okay, so we got Cameron, a leader here again, who I'm assuming is one of our Chinese athletes here. I'll get his name in just a second because it's escaping me, but we do have a lot of great updates from the women's race, and then we can start to wind down today's show. So just quickly here, going through the top 10 women at La Diette. This is again 19 kilometers into the race. We are at about an hour and 50 elapsed. So again, when people are hearing this is going to be very much in history, and the race will already be determined, but maybe we can just comment on how things are evolving so far. In the women's race, Mael Yao in first. So we've got a pair of Chinese athletes leading both the men's and women's races. Tony McCann in second, South African. Ali Mack in third. Katie Scheid in fourth. Nuria Jill in fifth. Rachel Drake in sixth. Jen Lichter in seventh. Daniela Omis in eighth. Caitlin Fielder in ninth. And Kate Avery from Great Britain in 10th. So just to give some splits here, Majell, who we know to race aggressively, has about a minute and 30-second lead here at the top of the first climb. Ali Mack is, just right there. It looks like Ali Mack and Tony McCann are running together. Katie Scheid, 4 minutes back of Majell right now. So top 10 women. I mean, Majell has a 10-minute lead over 10th place right now. So she's off.
Everybody's tight though. That's tight. We have to remember that she won in 2018. But she
CCC.
was
She won. Yeah.
CCC.
Yeah.
Oh,
she's
yeah,
racing
right.
OCC.
Not OCC.
Yeah.
But now she also has, I mean, we think of her as more of like a 100K, 100-mile distance athlete. So it is really exciting to see her running this shorter distance. But then she just, I think it was fourth at, I wrote it, Sears and all. And then was second at Mont Blanc Marathon.
Yeah. So she's been racing the Golden Trail.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's been focusing on the shorter distance. So it's really exciting to see.
Yeah. Super, super interesting. Any closing thoughts as we sort of approach the end of the show here today? Madge, why don't we talk a little bit about your UTMB coming up? Are you feeling confident in your fitness? Are you, do you have any special strategies, goals, race plans you want to share with the audience?
I'm just so excited to be able to get out there and just experience this loop again. Yeah. I know it's probably, it's not like Helen's like naming off the arduous goals and all of that. But, it's incredible to be able to come back here and just have this opportunity. And I think like for me on a personal note, I got an entry for this for 2020, right? And then the world did what it did and we all went through the pandemic and this was the last year that we were allowed to use that 2020 spot. So yeah, it's been an incredible few years for everyone in the world. And to be able to come back here and to be able to be with everyone again and hang out and be able to have this opportunity to run is huge. And I think in all honesty, it's like the most important thing is to get out there and have a good crack. And, this race is just going to be so incredible to watch as someone who's not being a part of it. And I think I'm excited for everyone watching this thing go down as much as anyone who's going to be a part of the race. And I think that's so awesome for the sport, right? Like
who's crewing for you?
People are in. I've got good old Robbie Britton helping us out. I'm a little bit, he didn't make it home last night, so I'm a little bit unsure if he's going to turn up at any aid station. He messaged me. Yeah, he was like, "Oh no, dude, I found a pull-out couch, so I'm just going to stay here." So I don't know if he's going to turn up. He's been a man of mystery this past week, so we'll see. But I heard the aid stations are
back to
packed.
college dorm.
Yeah.
Fun story for our listeners here. Myself and Robbie Britton were scheduled to bunk together at the 2015 Tarawera Ultramarathon in New Zealand. And Robbie, who I had never met before, we meet at like sort of the opening kind of welcome party at Paul's house, the race director. And Robbie's like, "Hey mate, do you care if my buddy from Australia sort of stays with us too?" I was like, "Yeah, no worries." Madge, Robbie, and I are crammed into this little like hotel room at Tarawera. I ended up winning the race that year. Madge helps to crew for both of us. And we've all been dear friends ever since.
Yeah, unreal.
And Madge texts me every time I race. He texts me, "No anxious." Do you want to tell the people about the no anxious story? Yeah,
we were out in Japan at Ultra Trail Mount Fuji back in 2018. And the Japanese, it's so awesome to have the Japanese, such a big part of this sport as well. He's like some Japanese sensei comes up to Dylan the day before the race and he just says, "No anxious, son." And he hands him this little he hands you
a little memento, a little like Japanese token of respect, basically.
And it just like completely calmed us for like the next 48 hours. And then Dylan goes on and runs this race. The whole time he's like behind Pau Capel, who's gone out like guns blazing like he always does. The very last aid station, Power Capel's in there and he's like jamming ham and cheese down and he's just looking bad. Dylan comes in 10 minutes later into the last aid station of Ultra Trail Mount Fuji, 100 miler. And he gets in and gets out and he's running out of the aid station. And I'm like, man, no anxious, son, no anxious. And up this climb, Dylan ends up catching Power Capel, overtakes him with like 4 miles to go in the race and just blazes home, wins UTMF. And yeah, no anxious, son. It's just, it's the thing.
Bless.
So just for our listeners here, Madge has been a very important character in my life and my career. He's crewed for me 4 times, twice at Tarawera, once at Ultra Trail Australia, once at UTMF. All 4 races I won. So
in style,
I love you so much. And I wish you nothing but the best in your UTMB.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's going to be fun.
We have some more updates real quick before we sign up. The lead men are through Triant, and I think it's worth mentioning here because the top 10 men are separated by less than 4 minutes at this point. So we still have the Chinese duo Yusheng Guan and Tao Lu in first and second, Nadir Maguette, Italian in third, Stian Angermoon, Norwegian in fourth, Robbie Simpson, the Brit in fifth, Anthony Felber in sixth, Frenchman, Jeshrin Small, American in seventh, Bart, whose last name I cannot pronounce, Polish athlete in eighth, Francesco Pupi, Italian in ninth, and Guang Fu Meng, another Chinese athlete in 10th place. So 3 Chinese athletes in the top 10 and all 10 separated by less than 4 minutes. So it's a very, very tight race here at OCC, which is not surprising. Katie, any closing remarks from you?
I think for me, it's about that you've already won just getting to the start line. I mean, really, for all of these athletes that are showing up, I think just you've put in all of the effort and all of the training and all of the excitement and the logistics and everything that takes to get to a start line, and to be able to show up healthy is half the battle, really. And I just am giving all of you just so much energy. I'm really feeling for Danny Moreno right now. We haven't mentioned her name yet. But I'm really feeling for her. She's coming back to OCC. She's racing now, but last year she had a breakout performance at third at OCC, and we were texting this week, and she was just saying she wasn't feeling well. She had a stomach bug and she wasn't feeling great. And, that's the sort of thing that's like, but she's like, but I'm going to show up and be grateful that I'm here, So maybe she's not her best self, but she's still here. She has the support of her team. And I just think that that's the sort of energy we all need to go in to this sport, really, is just being grateful for what we have. Maybe we're not always showing up as our best selves, but we can show up as our best selves that day, and remembering and having the gratitude of the community that brought you there and the family that we all are for each other is just something to just hold on tight. And I think, trail culture is at its best, and when we're all happy together. So,
amen.
There we go.
Trail culture.
So good.
And thanks for mentioning Danny. Just to give our audience a little bit of context of what we have coming up before we sign off today, Danny Moreno and MK Sullivan will be in here tomorrow with Francesco Pupi. All 3 of them are out on the OCC race course right now. So we're going to do a deep dive recap of OCC with all 3 of them tomorrow. And then they'll help me preview the UTMB field. That's going to be on tomorrow morning's show. We have Tom Evans and Tim Tollefson coming in for pre-race interviews here this morning. So we got plenty more content coming at you. Before we sign off, a few things to remind you of. Go play fantasy trail running. You have less than 24 hours to get your picks in for CCC, not much more than that for UTMB. And we have amazing prize packages on the line. A head-to-toe kit from Hoka, including the Stinson 7 new trail shoe from Hoka. We also have Zephyr packs from Camelback. So if you are a great predictor of the results here at the UTMB races, you will be going home with a fully new wardrobe of trail running gear. So a big thanks to our sponsors for providing that. Again, visit fantasy.freetrail.com, pick 10 deep for both the men's and women's races of CCC and UTMB. And again, finally, a big thanks to our sponsors, Hoka and Camelback, for making our content efforts possible here at UTMB this year. Again, check out the Stinson 7 from Hoka, great road to trail shoe you can take from the heart of Chamonix all the way up to the top of the Provence and beyond. And of course, the Zephyr packs from Camelback. And a reminder, if you're in Chamonix, come see us tonight at the at the Camelback event. It's going to be at the Hotel Folie Douce. Myself, Ryan, Harmony will all be there. Maybe we can convince at least Katie to come. Madge is going to be resting up for his UTMB. But from 6 to 8 p.m., there's going to be panel discussions, an open bar, previewing some new product and stuff. So we'll be there tonight. We hope to see you there. For Katie Asmuth, Mael Backhausen, have an awesome Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.